Burnout in the fitness industry is not only common, it can damage your body both hormonally and your joint health and your mental health. We are taught that a more intense routine is what is required to be fit, and this is often combined with a low-calorie diet. This combination of too much exercise, too much intense exercise, and not eating enough eventually creates physical and mental burnout and ultimately backfires. It can lead to what I'm referring to today as anti-recomposition, which means you have a hard time with body recomposition, so gaining muscle and or losing fat, which is ironically a lot of people's goals when they start these really intense programs. I'm very passionate about this topic because I have personal experience with burnout. As many of you listeners know, I used to overexercise in the pursuit of quote unquote fitness and looking quote unquote toned, and it largely backfired. I had chronic fatigue, I had chronic pain all over my body, and I was only in my mid-20s. No amount of massage or PT helped. It was really coming from my lack of eating properly, lack of recovering properly, and overly intense exercise routine. Ironically, when I shift my focus to less but better, I started seeing better results, but without the chronic fatigue and pain. I'm passionate about spreading this message and helping more women avoid burnout because it is so rampant in the fitness industry with so many different types of exercise programs. So today I want to talk about why this quote unquote anti-recomposition happens, how to identify a program that have elements that will lead to burnout, and what to focus on instead. So muscle growth operates on a fundamental biological principle. It grows in recovery, not during the exercise itself. Research shows that muscle typically needs at least 48 hours to recover and adapt after resistance training. While the acute or the immediate inflammation that occurs during strength training is a necessary signal for muscle growth, this happens through the activation of satellite cells and protein synthesis pathways. Chronic inflammation from overtraining can actually impair muscle growth by interfering with protein synthesis and muscle repair processes. This is why structure is so important. You don't want to overwork muscle groups. Structure your week so that you are giving each muscle group 48 hours of recovery. For example, if you work glutes on Tuesday, wait until Thursday or Friday to work them again. Another way overly intense exercise workout programs can lead to burnout and anti-recomposition is through hormonal responses. The combination of excessive exercise and severe calorie restriction triggers a cascade of hormonal disruptions that can sabotage your body composition goals. Research shows that this combination significantly impairs sleep quality. You might notice that you don't sleep as well when you are under eating and overexercising, which leads to increased production of ghrelin, a hunger hormone, and decreased testosterone levels. These hormonal shifts make it increasingly difficult to maintain a caloric deficit because you're hungrier, and it makes it difficult to build or even maintain muscle mass because hormones responsible for building muscle are lower. So effectively, you're working against both fat loss and muscle gain goals. A key hormone that is also affected by this overtraining is cortisol, which is the stress hormone. When the body experiences dual stresses of insufficient caloric intake and excessive exercise, cortisol levels become chronically elevated. According to some research in the Strength and Conditioning Journal, this creates that anti-recomposition effect or environment, which is what I'm talking about today, where insulin sensitivity decreases and muscle building and fat loss becomes significantly more difficult. Also, growth hormone production, which is crucial for muscle development and recovery, becomes suppressed under these conditions. Your metabolism is also effective when you overdo the exercise and undereat. The body undergoes various adaptive responses to protect itself from what it perceives as a threat to survival, right? Your energy expenditure is high and the calories coming in are low. So studies show that when this happens, over time, your basal metabolic rate and your resting metabolic rate decrease, so your metabolism decreases to conserve energy when caloric restriction becomes too severe. At the same time, appetite regulating hormones shift, so you're hungrier, making it increasingly difficult to maintain a caloric deficit. This metabolic adaptation demonstrates why aggressive approaches to exercise and diet often lead to diminishing returns and can ultimately prevent success and results. The body composition response to training follows an inverted U or a rainbow, where too little stimulus won't produce change, but too much can be counterproductive by promoting excessive inflammation, hormonal disruption, and decreased recovery capacity. So you want to be right in the middle for the best results. It doesn't mean you need a lot of exercise. You need the right exercise in the right dose. Commonly, we're taught to focus on perceived exertion, sweating, or calories, and all of these things are poor and inaccurate indicators of effectiveness. More is not better, but you do want to prioritize the right ingredients, the right things for the best outcomes. And I'll discuss the important things to have in your routine in a moment. So how do you identify if you may be suffering from burnout? Maybe you are coming from a program like that is overdoing the exercise. Maybe you're working out twice a day, or maybe you're doing intense exercise every single day, and you're asking yourself, okay, am I burning out? Am I creating this anti-recomposition environment inside my body unknowingly? These are some things that I saw as a physical therapist to indicate that you're overdoing it. And this was the person that I worked with. I worked with athletes, bodybuilders, fitness enthusiasts who were doing all of the right things, right? They were quote unquote right things. They were exercising hard, they were exercising daily, and yet they felt broken down and they started to experience all these symptoms. So these are the symptoms to look for. Number one, you may feel like you need to take a nap or that you got hit by a truck after you work out. Your workout should not completely wreck you, and it doesn't need to completely wreck you in order to be effective. Number two, your body hurts all the time, but your body feels better when you take a break from working out. That's a big one. And that's something that I experienced and ultimately was my shift that made me realize, okay, I need to change things because I feel better when I don't exercise. Number three, you're consistently working out hard, but you're not seeing results. Again, that could be because you're in that anti-composition environment where your body's kind of working against itself because you're overstressing it. What am I on? 4, sleep is suffering. Again, this is something that I really experienced personally. I was getting a lot of night terrors, sleep disruption, and all of this was allowing me to not recover properly. Next is you're constantly sore and your muscles are very tender to touch. Now, this is very common when you first start a new fitness program, is that you have soreness or your muscles are very tender to touch. But if you are, let's say you touch your outer thigh or like your glute med area and it feels like you want to like jump up out of your chair because it's so sore and tender and you've been exercising, you've been doing the same program for 3 months or longer. This is kind of a telltale sign of overuse and inflammation in that area. So if you're constantly sore, your muscles are super tender to touch, it means you need to restructure your program so that you're allowing for more recovery in those muscles. And finally, decreased strength. So if you feel like you're almost getting weaker, this could be an indication that you are burning yourself out and you can afford to have a more structured program. Remember that most fitness programs are not based in science. They are a product with the intention to sell you. They know the things that you think are going to be effective, aka nailing your body into the ground as hard as possible, making you sweat and burn a lot of calories. But those aren't necessarily the qualities of a workout that are going to allow you to see the best results, get really fit, and be sustainable. So here are some qualities of a workout program that I would recommend avoiding. Let's say you're like, okay, I think I might be burned out, or maybe you've experienced it in the past and you want to avoid it, and you're looking for a workout program. Obviously, do Evlo because I'm biased, but we are a science-based fitness program in which we are doing all of the things based in science to allow you to build muscle without overworking. But here are some things that I recommend avoiding if you are looking at a fitness program. So number one, working the same muscle groups each day, including abs. Abs are just like any other muscle group in that they need 48 hours of recovery in between. You can train your abdominals close to failure, and that's something that we do in Evlo. And if you're doing that, you will see muscle growth in your abdominals. However, they need recovery. So don't work the abs every day. Don't work the glutes every day. Don't work the arms every day. If you're looking at a program and it's working the same muscle groups every single day without 48 hours of rest in between, I would recommend avoiding that. Second is every workout in the week is really long and really intense. Instead, structure your week to have some intense workouts and some easier days. This is a way to kind of periodize your training within a week and allows your system as a whole to recover in between workouts. For example, in Evlo, Tuesday is lower body build and is one of our systemically most challenging workouts. Your legs are just large muscles, and so leg exercises tend to be more systemically fatiguing. You might find that you feel overall more tired after a leg day, and this is totally normal. With that in mind, though, we intentionally put our mat build class on Wednesdays to give your system as a whole a break. So in mat build, we're on the mat, we're still challenging muscles close to failure, but the class is less systemically fatiguing or overall fatiguing. So structuring your week in this way to include some harder days and some easier days helps you to manage recovery and fatigue, allowing you to stay consistent and continually progress. Next is to avoid a program that has an emphasis on calorie burning and sweating. Calorie burning and sweating really tell you nothing about the quality of the workout. So if you are trying to get a cardio workout, what I recommend is focusing on heart rate instead of sweating or calories burned. And if you are doing a strength training workout, focus on if that muscle is getting close to failure. Don't worry about calories. Don't worry about sweating. Yes, you will burn calories if you're exercising. You probably will sweat or might sweat. I don't sweat that much, but you might sweat, you might not. It doesn't really matter because it won't provide a reliable picture of what's going on. Next, avoid a program if they use the terminology no pain, no gain. Instead, this is big. Leave space for auto-regulation. Adjust based on how you feel so you can stay consistent. If an exercise hurts, if an exercise is uncomfortable, if you really just don't enjoy an exercise, it's not going to be very effective because you'll stop that exercise because of joint pain or discomfort or boredom or because you're just ready for it to be over rather than stopping that exercise because the muscle is the limiting factor. So I am not a believer in no pain, no gain. I'm a believer in choosing exercises and choosing a program that feels good. This doesn't mean that your workouts should be easy. It just means that they should be purposeful. So putting your efforts in the right place, like training a muscle group close to failure, choosing exercises that allow you to do that you're not stopped by other things like discomfort, pain, is ultimately where you're going to see the best results. No pain, no gain is something we can just leave in the past. Next, avoid an exercise program that has lots of filler exercises. So let's say you're doing lunges and then as you're resting, in between your sets, you're doing burpees or you're doing high knees or you're doing mountain climbers or you're hitting the treadmill and running. I do not recommend adding in these filler exercises in between. People think that it saves time. Like, oh, I'm going to get a little extra cardio like while I'm resting, or I'm going to get my heart rate up in between these exercises. But the problem with that is these fillers just fatigue you for no high payoff. So either do a structured superset. So for example, in Evlo, we do supersets. So we work one muscle group while that muscle group is resting, we work another muscle group. So that by the time we get back to the muscle group that we worked first, it had several minutes of rest in between. So you can do that to make your workouts more condensed, or you can just rest in between sets. But I really think that these fillers are a way for the fitness industry to make you feel like you're working really hard, but they just don't really have a very high payoff. Next is that the program has no active rest days. So it's 7 days a week. You need easy days. If you are hitting it hard 6 to 7 days a week, your body is simply going to break down. And this is one of these things that for those of you that are working out every single day, it's hard. But you can go on an easy walk or you can stay active. We highly recommend you staying active, but you are going to see better results if you give your body a break. And I like to take 2 recovery days. I like to take mine Saturday and Sunday, but they don't have to be consistent or consecutive. They can be on Tuesday, Saturday. Doesn't matter. So you just kind of do what feels best for you. Another indicator that a program can lead to burnout is if, again, and I alluded to this earlier, you're cutting calories really low and doing intense workouts daily. Your body needs fuel, especially if you're trying to body recomposition, which is a goal for many. Cutting calories too low and adding lots of exercise will quickly burn you out. And again, that's something I discussed earlier. So those are the things to avoid in a program, but what are things that we should look for? So here are the essential and most potent ingredients for a fitter body. And it's really more straightforward than many people believe, but for some reason, people have a hard time implementing these things. I think it's because they're basic and we want to think that we want to overcomplicate things when it doesn't need to be that way. I think this is partly because we've been duped by the fitness industry into prioritizing the wrong things. For muscle growth and strength development, research indicates that approximately 4 or more challenging sets per week per muscle group distributed across about 2 sessions is optimal for muscle for most individuals for muscle growth. So again, in Evlo, we're working most muscle groups 2 times a week on non-consecutive days. We're doing higher volume than 4 sets per muscle group, but 4 is kind of the minimum that research indicates. The key for training is to train near muscular failure with a range of 6 to 30 repetitions rather than focusing on what weight you're lifting or feeling the burn. What matters is that you get close to failure. So I don't recommend setting a rep range for yourself. So I don't recommend saying, okay, I'm going to do 3 sets of 10 reps, because let's say you get to your 10th rep and you're like, I actually could have done 15 reps and I wasn't close to failure. That might not be a very effective set for muscle growth. On the opposite side of things, you might get to 10 reps and you should have stopped at 8, right? So I don't recommend counting reps. I don't recommend necessarily setting a timer for yourself and trying to just go throughout the whole timer, because it's really the same issue. I recommend just keep going until you approach failure. Your last rep should be really slow and really hard. So this type of training should be combined with adequate protein intake. The registered dietitian we work with recommends 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. And keep your overall activity levels high, whether you want to look at that by cardio minutes, so doing at least 150 minutes of cardio per week is what we suggest, or steps if you want to look at, okay, I'm just staying overall active with at least 75, 100 steps per day. All of those things are to support metabolic and cardiovascular health. We also encourage adding HIIT for metabolic health if you can. This is not something I'm personally adding right now as I'm pregnant, but if you want to add HIIT or if your joints feel good with it, adding really 1 to 2 really short HIIT sessions per week. So they don't need to be longer than like 15 minutes. Importantly, if fat loss is your goal, fat loss is primarily achieved through a sustainable calorie deficit, not through additional exercise volume beyond these recommendations. Understanding these scientific principles helps establish both the minimum effective dose and the point of diminishing returns for exercise. So let's say you're adding all of these potent ingredients, you're ditching kind of the burnout mentality. What happens? What can you expect to happen? Number 1, you're just simply going to be more consistent. We hear this from Evlo members all the time that this is the first program they're able to stay consistent with. It's because we are structuring our week in a way in which your muscles are getting plenty of work, but they're not being overworked. You don't feel, we all get sore, right? But we don't feel constantly broken down. And so we're able to stay consistent. You're not sidelined by injuries. Number 2 is because you can be more consistent and you're using the science and applying the science, you're simply going to see better results. You're putting your effort and your focus in the right things that matter and that have the biggest impact. Number 3, your body will physically feel better, less aches and pains because it's not overstressed. Number 4, you're likely to get better sleep because you're recovering better. And number 5, finally, you'll probably have more stable stress and hunger hormones. And all of this can lead to an upward spiral where you're able to make better lifestyle choices around food, around sleep. You're more rested, you have more stable energy levels. Maybe you're able to stay more active overall, and your NEAT or your non-exercise activity thermogenesis stays higher because you're just not so depleted. So all of this accumulates to create a lifestyle that is ultimately so much more effective and sustainable. You're excited for your workouts because you know it's not going to completely smash you. I can tell you, after working out like this consistently for 5 years, my joints don't hurt like they used to all the time. I'm able to do things in my life with more ease. My husband also does Evlo, and we talk about this, and he comes from chronic pain as well, from over-exercise and sports and things. But we talk about all the time, like we just run up and down the stairs like it's no problem. We get up and down off the floor with our daughter, and like our knees aren't hurting. Whereas some of our friends are in their 30s and they're like, oh, I'm creaking. I can't even get up and down off the floor. And it's like taking care of your body in this way will allow you to feel better in your daily life. You'll be able to do the things that you want to do in your daily life with more ease. And again, maybe for some of you that haven't had chronic pain, you can't fully appreciate it. But if you have had chronic pain, you can 100% appreciate the impact of that. I can also tell you that when I was working out, 7 to 10 hours each week and working out really hard each week and smashing my body into the ground, I really didn't see very good results. I see so much better results now. And my workouts are 35 minutes, 5 days a week. And then I walk most most days. So that's really all I'm doing, but I'm focused more on quality rather than quantity. And it's really made the biggest difference in my body composition, how I feel, my consistency, all of that. And I really want this for you all as well. And again, I could go on and on about how passionate I am about this, but I think it's because we have been wired in all of the wrong ways in the fitness industry. And if we can rewire these things, we can be fitter and healthier as a population. So I hope this episode was helpful. We will see you all next week, same time, same place. Bye for now.